Hello everyone. We often know South Korea as one of the four Asian tigers economically, or more distantly, for their K-pop bands exported worldwide. But you may not know they are also a leading global arms producer. Last year, South Korea exported around $20 billion worth of arms to the Philippines, Australia, Egypt, Norway, Finland, Poland. Even the United States plans to buy tens of thousands of artillery shells from South Korea to send to Ukraine. If in 2021 they ranked 9th globally in arms exports, in 2023 they have had an impressive breakthrough, rising to 4th place after only the U.S., Russia, and France. How did South Korea accomplish this? Let's find out together. In 1953, after the Korean War ended, South Korea was devastated economically and militarily. Thus, they welcomed tens of thousands of U.S. soldiers to protect the country. In 1958, they even allowed Washington to deploy 150 nuclear warheads on their territory to defend against North Korea as well as China and the Soviet Union. For nearly 2 decades, South Korea depended almost entirely on America's protection. This also meant they had to become a loyal follower. Disobeying meant getting hit. That was partly why South Korea sent troops to fight in Vietnam in the 1960s. Not only that, their military was also modeled on the U.S. command system. At the same time, much money from soldiers' blood and bones was used to buy weapons, contributing to the U.S. defense industry. However, an event in 1969 changed everything. The Nixon Doctrine emerged. The U.S. decided to normalize relations with China, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. On one hand, the U.S. wanted to exploit the divide in Sino-Soviet relations to draw Beijing onto its side, avoiding confronting 2 strong enemies simultaneously. On the other hand, they wanted to split the socialist countries' alliance to isolate Vietnam, in order to turn the tide against the risk of failure in the early 1970s. To demonstrate goodwill, the U.S. appeased China's concerns by withdrawing 1/3 of its forces from South Korea, from 60,000 down to 40,000. Later, when Jimmy Carter became president, he even declared all U.S. troops would leave Seoul within 5 years. This was a huge shock and damaged South Koreans' confidence. President Park Chung-hee said the troop withdrawal sent us a message that the U.S. would not be ready to assist if the South was attacked once more, so we must find a way to protect ourselves. Moreover, at that time North Korea not only had absolute military superiority, they were also developing nuclear weapons. As the U.S. reduced soldiers on the peninsula, the North kept sending troops to harass the southern border. Those were the reasons the South Korean defense industry emerged. Unlike economic sectors where money could easily buy production technologies, weapons were highly classified. It wasn't as simple as buying the manufacturing process. At that forced time, South Korea had no other choice but to blindly trial and error. If they couldn't get much, little was still good. Instead of spending huge sums to establish a specialized state defense company, South Korea tasked their agencies with producing components for private enterprises. Then the State Development Agency would assemble them into final products to attract more investors. The state provided them land to build factories, tax reductions or interest-free loans. The initial testing process went as follows. They disassembled and dissected weapons imported from the U.S., then carefully drew each small component and contracted private defense contractors to manufacture them. Afterwards, state companies would reassemble them to recreate the precise design process. However, everything was not as easy as imagined. They had to repeatedly trial and error, failing many times before succeeding. Thanks to hard, diligent work, by 1972 South Korea could manufacture basic weapons like M16 rifles, bazooka anti-tank weapons, ammunition and mines. Once achieving small successes, they dreamed of greater ones. In 1974, South Korea planned to develop guided missiles, an advanced weapon at the time only possessed by the U.S., Germany and Soviet Union. Everything also started from zero. No experts, factories or knowledge about production processes. Not only that, South Korea faced U.S. opposition for unconvincing reasons. In fact, Washington feared its influence on the Korean Peninsula would diminish. Regardless of that, they remained determined to push forward in secret. The development idea was quite simple. Modify the U.S.-made Nike Hercules guided missiles with the goal of extending range to 350 kilometers, able to reach Pyongyang's command centers directly. However, with the U.S. prior warning, South Korea had to lower the target to 200 kilometers. Unlike a gun or bullet, building a complex guided missile was far more difficult. Disassembling and reassembling was one thing, but designing the engine or producing propellant was extremely challenging work. With help from France and the determination of young scientists, after 4 long years filled with failures, South Korea became one of the first 4 nations to possess guided missiles, helping balance military power with North Korea. Afterwards, other weapons like tanks, aircraft and warships were also created in similar ways, licensing technology then dissecting and assembling imports to figure out manufacturing. Once adept at replicating originals, South Korea continued upgrading and integrating new technologies they researched to create their own unique products. It can be said they are one of the world's top reverse engineering masters. So how did South Korea become a leading global arms exporter? Firstly, their products are cheap like other Korean technologies. Copying and upgrading costs less than researching from scratch. Of course, South Korean weapons are assessed as equivalent quality to some higher-priced originals. For example, their K-2 tanks are compared to the U.S. M1A2 Abrams but at lower cost. Secondly, fast delivery speed. Over past decades, South Korea has quietly built large-scale, privatized military-industrial complexes. Instead of one state company handling many orders, they are divided among many private conglomerates. Additionally, corporations like Hanwha Defense and Hyundai Rotem receive generous state sponsorship through interest-free loans or tax reductions, contributing to lowering weapon sale prices. Moreover, South Korea also advocates integrating other industries alongside defense, like steel, chemicals and electronics. Basically, raw materials and inputs for weapons can be easily mobilized from other sectors, expediting production. In just 3 months they can produce 10 tanks and 24 self-propelled guns for Poland. Thirdly, unlike the U.S., which highly restricts advanced weapons production abroad, South Korea does not consider that as important as contracts and money. For example, they have transferred production technology to Poland for 801,000 tanks and 500-700 self-propelled guns ordered. Through such flexible sales methods, they now have around 43 country clients and promise to boom even further in the arms trade.